My name is Delia Watley. You all know I am from Louisiana. I went to school at an HBCU, got my master's at Lamar. My mom, her background stems from the backwoods of Louisiana, there in Caldwell Parish, Kelly, Louisiana. And what brought me to Dallas, I used to come to Dallas during the summers with my aunt and went to school and worked at the time at the EDS Enron account, if you can remember those days. And then I found my way to Irving ISD, and I've been with Irving ISD now for almost 25 years. I feel like I'm a history lesson here at Irving ISD. I love working here in the district. I love being able to tell my story of my history, my personal history story that actually involves my ancestors, me and my genealogy search for where am I from? Why do I look this way? Who are my family members? And so I've been able to track my family back to slavery, which brings us to history. History for me is personal because I feel that I have a rich history of those folks that led the way for me to be where I am today. And when I researched the history and find out that I had relatives that started schools, that donated land to universities to educate children back in the days when everyone was not allowed to be educated, I think about today and where I am. Here I am in Irving ISD in the school district, teaching, setting an example for young folks, doing something that I love. And knowing that history about myself sort of explains why I love so much what I do here in the Urban Independent School District. So history, when I look up the definition and I think of story of the past, a collection of memory based on facts, it tells us who we are, where we come from, where we're going, and it potentially helps us and keeps us from making maybe those mistakes from the past. It explains what happened, why it happened. It contains our triumphs as well as our failures. I mean, history is what it is. We can't go in and take out the good parts or take out the bad parts and leave the good parts, but it can give us an understanding of where we want to be and what type of future we want to have. Everything about that definition excites me. I love taking family trips to museums during Black History Month. That's something that I love to do. I grab up the young kids, my nieces, my nephews, and we go visit museums, or we may go visit a historical site. I remember one time we went to Atlanta, Georgia, and they got to see all of the artifacts related to Martin Luther King and the civil rights journey. There was one time we went to Washington, D.C., and there's so much rich history in Washington, D.C. from our forefathers. Black history is all woven into the fabric of America. And so everywhere you go, you're going to experience Black history. We just get to celebrate it this month, but it is a history that is with us throughout the year and throughout many ages. When I think about our story, African Americans here in America, it's no different than, the Italians when they came, the Irish, the Japanese. They all had a story. They all had a rich history from where they started and how they assimilated into society, their settlement. African Americans, no different. The great thing about me is that through my genealogy search, I was able to track those ancestors all the way back to the plantation. I was able to visit the cemetery where many of those slaves are buried, along with the slave master and his wife in that same cemetery. We are written in a book that's in the Library of Congress, Caldwell Parish in Slices. There was an interview from one of my great uncles talking about slavery and living on the plantation, talking about the master, talking about what it was like after the Civil War and when they were able to build their own homes and work and earn money. And they were, many of them, landowners. I read and was able to find out and discover that a couple of my uncles actually ran for Congress at the House of Representatives, and I was able to see that he got 4 votes. It may not seem like a lot, but it was a lot for me that my uncle, and I was very proud to know that my uncle actually ran for Congress and got 4 votes. He was number 3. So that was a great thing. I love reading. I love reading stories. I'm a Bible class teacher. So I love reading the stories in the Bible. Guess what? That's history. That is history, and we don't take out the bad parts. We don't, embellish the good parts. We read it, if you're a Bible reader or scholar or whatever, you read it just like it is, the good and the bad. Same with American history. That includes good things, bad things. But as we move along, we get better and better. And learning about that history helps us to improve. I was inspired by the courage of Martin Luther King because he could have done anything. He was a great spokesman. He could have done anything. He could have been anything that he wanted to be. But he decided that he would fight for the rights of Black Americans to exist here in America. He wanted us all to be on the same playing level, and that's what he fought for, and the courage that it took. He knew that some people did not want that. He knew that his life may be in danger, but it didn't stop him. And so that courage, that type of courage to stand out no matter what, fight for what is right, that is what really impressed me about Martin Luther King. Others that inspire me include many of those great aunts that I talked about that lived during the time they were children of those slaves. I remember when we would have breaks in college, and many of the kids, they couldn't wait to leave to go out on the town and party. Well, me, I couldn't wait to get to my aunt's house, because there I was going to sit in the living room of my aunt and listen to all of those stories that she told, all of the wisdom that came out that I was just soaking in. That's what I loved, listening to. And so I knew then that I was a history buff. I loved history at that, because who wants to sit in front of, my aunt lived to be 100 years old. And I think up until she was 100 years old, I was sitting in her living room listening to those stories. Call me weird, whatever. But that's what I enjoy doing. And so I still love hearing the stories. I'll go and sit down with a senior citizen any day and listen to some of the stories that they tell about their past and how they got where they are. And it's just so interesting to me. I get emotional when I think about the children here in our district, because I'm able to play a part in the lives of their parents. The parents here in our adult education program, they're here to change their lives. They're here to improve the lives of themselves and their children and their families. Many of them have never been to school. Many of them have never experienced success when it comes to academics. And so to know that I play a part in that timeline of that individual, something that they'll be able to look back and say, I remember Miss Delia, she taught me this, or she said something to me, or she inspired me to do something. To think that I played a part in that, many years later, maybe I won't hear about it, but many years later, hopefully the fruits of that labor will be evident in the lives of those families that are touched by the things that we do here in the school district. There's just so much to learn about history. I want to learn about more historical sites. That's what I look for. People think about their bucket lists. Well, I have the bucket list of learning more about history. The best lesson that I've learned? Well, over the last few years, I learned a really valuable lesson that I think will help me and others if they would abide by it. And that was that we can learn to live peaceably with others who don't agree with us. That's a lesson that beats me over the head every day lately. But you are able and you can look beyond those differences to those things that, bring you together, those things that you have in common, like love for one another. You can look at those things. It is possible to love and disagree at the same time. It's possible. That's a valuable lesson that I'm learning, and I hope others will share with me in that learning experience.